Hello, good people. It's Sheila. I'm a conscious empath, a master Reiki practitioner, sketch artist, poet, handcraft artisan, and the founder of BohemianWomanRising.com, where we challenge social constructs in pursuit of spiritual transformation. And today I'm here with another interview on ET's disclosure and UFOs, but they're better known now as unidentified, anomalous. Help me out there, David. Anomalous
Phenomena.
phenomena. Thank you. And but before we get to the interview, I do want to thank Catherina Mirasol, who's handling the behind the scenes tech. And you can learn more about Catherina and her Project 5356, where she offers operations and consultancy services. So do please check out her Instagram page. And with that, I'm going to introduce David Sloan, who is a starseed wanderer and a researcher of all that is, what should I say, David? All that is.
I mean, a lot of conspiracies, as many rabbit holes as I can go down.
And that's what I love about you. You're like such a polymath on this topic. I love this. We can go so deep. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself, and then I'm going to jump into the questions.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be on your show.
Thank you.
So I would say my initial awakening to some of the conspiracies that are more popular than usual now, particularly the UFO, UAP phenomenon, extraterrestrial phenomenon. I really gravitated towards this probably in 2009. I was actually in graduate school, getting my MBA, and I want to say one of the first shows that popped up was Ancient Aliens. So that initialized, I think, my interest more than it had been in the topic. So 2009, 2010 had my initial awakening, went down several rabbit holes, gravitated more towards like Dr. Stephen Greer and his content, the Disclosure Project. And then it just kind of branched off from there, eventually delved into like government conspiracies, pretty much everything, including JFK's assassination. And then it delved into the esoteric knowledge of like secret societies and kind of where their beliefs stem from ancient knowledge from Atlantean and Lemurian civilizations, where they reference esoteric knowledge, lost knowledge, hermeticism, that sort of stuff. And then I think inevitably delving down these types of conspiracies and rabbit holes, you gain an understanding of like your own spirituality. So
agreed.
You definitely look more at yourself and like why you exist. So that's pretty much what happened. And I eventually came to the conclusion that I was a starseed. This is probably like 2014 timeframe. And so, yeah, just delved into a lot of different spiritual practices that I wasn't normally into. I grew up Catholic, Roman Catholic. So I don't consider myself religious by any means anymore. Very spiritual in that sense. Seeking my own answers, my own, going down my own path, my own journey. So for the last 15 years, delving down pretty much every rabbit hole. I would say I'm probably most knowledgeable in the ET UFO phenomenon, but I have a good grasp on a number of different conspiracies. So.
Yes, you do indeed. And before we get into the interview, I wrote up my preamble because there's so much to cover here. So I'm gonna read out my preamble because I didn't want to forget anything, and then we're gonna jump into some questions.
Got it.
And so I'm starting out with a quote from Richard Grove, who's a British historian and an environmental activist. And his quote is, "The greatest barrier to discovery is not ignorance, it's the illusion of knowledge," end quote. And now the universe is over 13 billion years old. The planet Earth is about 4.54 billion years old. The Milky Way Galaxy, where Earth is located, is about 100,000 light years in age. And humans have been on Earth for about 6 million years. So for me, relative to the time gaps mentioned above, empathically speaking, this energy equates to information. yeah, time is energy, and energy for me as an empath is information. Or our galaxy, the Milky Way, is vast, inhabiting multiple planets discovered and undiscovered, and understanding that countless galaxies exist, some of them 10 times bigger than our Milky Way, significantly suggests the existence of intelligent life well before the creation of Earth's galaxy, and that intelligent life from the older galaxies most certainly visited and lived on planet Earth long before the existence of human life. And timelines are multidimensional. Timelines are not linear. Um, Time, as we understand it in the third dimensional Earth experience, is linear. However, time is multidimensional. Currently, humanity is at a significant point on the journey of spiritual awakening. Evidence of this is happening now with regard to the deconstruction and exposure of our false matrix, a deceptive, constructed social reality designed to keep humanity ignorant of their sacred sovereignty and true spiritual power. Consider the exposure of global corrupt leadership presently underway. We are only seeing the tip of the iceberg, much more to come. This exposure purging is absolutely essential for the transcension. No one and no thing can ascend to the next dimension while still carrying low grade thoughts and energy. The impacts of revisionist history are costlier than we know. From birth, our DNA has been manipulated to subordinate our true spiritual capacity, and we operate within an intentional, nefarious social construct, which includes omitting our true ET human history. If we understood our true ET human history, the dark oligarchs would not be able to so easily control us. The agenda of the dark elites has been to maintain a fear based scarcity social construct to ensure humanity's naivete about their true history and spiritual sovereignty, which then allows the dark elites to implement systems to manipulate our thoughts and siphon our energy bodies. In part, this is accomplished through manipulative and nefarious divide and conquer strategies like race and gender relations and financial constructs designed to keep the majority of people in a cycle of economic struggle. It's our agitated energy they need to feed on. That's not the word I would want to use, agitated, but you understand. The good news is that Earth and her inhabitants have reached a critical point of energetic ascension, and we are now transitioning from the low energy 3D Earth paradigm through to the fourth, fifth, sixth dimensions and beyond. Ascension is an energetic experience that each individual will experience in their own divine timing. So as you complete your shadow work, things, people, and situations that are of low grade energy which no longer serve your highest spiritual good will begin to fall away. And one energetically transcends to the next dimension. Time is not linear, it's multidimensional, and with fully restored DNA, we will we will do so much more beyond astral travel. So here we are as a global collective, having achieved a critical majority of ascension work that ETs are mobilizing for global disclosure. A good example of hidden history just recently exposed is the discovery of the power coils that run miles deep beneath the Egyptian pyramids. Given we have certain technologies like thermography, seismographs, sonar available to us since about the 1800s to measure buried objects, in my opinion, the hidden dark oligarchs know that their time is up and the general populace is slowly being spoon fed and exposed to the technology that was and will be used to restore our energy bodies and the planet. Um, so thereby utterly disempowering the dark oligarchs. And here, at this point in time, is where our galactic family has chosen to return and disclose themselves on a global scale. The last interview with my returning guest, David Sloan, we discussed ETs more from a historical perspective. Today's interview will be looking at current events and the future. Briefly, here's an overview of topics we covered in our last Inner Earth ET deep dive interview. Planet Earth is much bigger than we know. We is much bigger than we know. Consider undiscovered, uninhabitable terrain for humans, but not perhaps for ETs. Earth was initially created as a living library, a living, loving library, but certain malevolent ETs had a different agenda for Earth. It's been established that carbon dating and the missing link science between humans and apes has been called into question. Our physical bodies are seeded to Earth, and there's no such thing as junk DNA. There's a missing piece of our human DNA origins. Human existence is much older than we know. Benevolent versus malevolent ETs. Earth has an ideal galactic placement. And I'm leaving the link to that interview in the description box for this discussion. And with that, I'm going to lead into my questions. And so, David, who are starseeds?
Starseeds are just people who recognize that they have an Earth mission where they are meant to raise the vibration of, let's say, all inhabitants on whatever planet they reside on. I think we exist in multiple planes at multiple times, right? Time's somewhat is illusory. So I think anyone technically can be a starseed wanderer. But I think if you have a remembrance of your mission, like you sought to go out into the universe, multiverse, and let's say share your wisdom or share your passion with others, and the tenets of that rely on awakening people to, let's say, certain truths, whatever you define as being relevant to you. So you could say it's subjective, but I think there's there's like a moral high ground that some people that call themselves starseed might take, in terms of like they're trying to generate compassion, forgiveness, unconditional love, those kinds of tenets or characteristics, rather than anything that might be considered negative. So
thank you. What is disclosure?
Disclosure could probably mean a lot of things. To me, it's just kind of associated with humanity's awakening. We've been lied to, as you referenced. We've been lied to pretty much our whole lives, and maybe some of the half-truths have been associated with this. So maybe we're given some of the truth, but it's easy to confuse us, particularly when a lot of the truths and historical basis of Earth, what we've gone through, has been rewritten or just hidden in shadow. So I think disclosure to me is associated with humans trying to figure out what the truth is, and I think everyone has their own unique journey to truth.
True.
They get to determine for themselves, or discern for themselves what is meaningful, what resonates with them. So there may be like legitimate facts and truth, but I think it is somewhat subjective to determine, like, this is what I believe took place. And who do I trust, right? Who's relaying that information? So this is huge within the ufology community, of like, which whistleblowers do I trust? Which insiders do I trust? Who do I resonate with? Who's, following the same path that I might be following at that particular moment? So.
Thank you. Can you provide a synopsis of the history and status of the unseen galactic war, please?
I'm not saying I'm an expert by any means on this. There's a lot of people that espouse that they have some kind of connection to, let's say, a galactic federation, or a council, Council of Nine or whatnot. There's different groups out there that are involved in Earth's ascension process, and this huge disclosure movement that we're undergoing. So I think the galactic war, humanity is definitely involved in it. I think that's the basis for a lot of these people reference, like, secret space programs. So something like a breakaway civilization, people always reference the Nazis going into space after World War II. So I think part of humanity is involved in the galactic war that's been ongoing for probably, since this universe's existence. But predominantly, a lot of people, other galactic historians, will reference, like, the Lyran system is where the origins of humanity started, or at least where the origins of this galactic war started, associated with a reptilian race that people reference as a Draco reptilian. So that has certainly impacted us over here on Earth. A lot of people will, there's an idea that certain ET races have used humanity in a kind of a proxy fashion to propagate whatever agenda they have. And some of these malevolent ETs have manipulated humanity throughout its past. to push a certain narrative or agenda. And I
Yes.
would say that's pretty accurate. A lot of the symbolism of our ancient past pretty much acknowledges this. In addition to like even religion plays a factor into this as well. So yeah, the Galactic War, I would say, is a war against entities that do not want the rest of us to have free will. They want to obviously manipulate and control us. And a lot of people will reference within the community, ufology community, will reference like a 95-5 rule, where they'll say 95% of the universal inhabitants are benevolent, love-based individuals or creatures, and 5% of the malevolent. I'd say that percentage, 95-5 rule, is pretty similar to what goes on with humanity as well. We kind of have a 5% of us on Earth that have sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies, and I think the majority of the rest of us are obviously can be manipulated to be sociopathic, but or conditioned to be that way. But I think the majority of us are compassionate and forgiving beings. But I think that rule, that 95-5 rule, plays out ubiquitously, out and through the universe.
Yeah. In my opinion, the good ETs have won the war, and I feel that way because things are happening on the Earth now that haven't been happening before. So otherwise they wouldn't be showing themselves. I think that's just me. So what, in your opinion, what role did ETs play in the creation, seeding of human life, and why?
Well, definitely going into like Earth's religions. I think the origins of humanity delve into genetic tinkering, and a lot of people will reference the Anunnaki, which were the ancient Sumerian gods. So Enlil, Enki, Nisarg, Anu being the father god. So I think all those Anunnaki gods are referenced in many other cultures and other religions, obviously predominantly the pagan religions of, let's say, Greek gods, Roman gods, Norse gods, Egyptian gods, where you reference like, the leadership, right? Let's say in Greek mythology, you'd have Zeus, whereas in Roman, you'd have Jupiter. You'd have Norse, I think it's Odin. An Egyptian god, comparatively, you'd have Osiris, I believe it is. So like all of these different gods from ancient times, I think are essentially the Anunnaki gods who seeded life, human life on Earth through genetic tinkering. So I think religion plays into this as well. I think even the monotheistic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, I think all play into this as well. But everyone has their different interpretations. So I think the nature of seeding life on Earth, advanced life, human life, was a combination of, genetic tinkering. So you could have like a Homo erectus type being, and then seed certain genetics into that genealogy and develop what is now Homo sapiens. So I think there's a number of races that have tinkered with our genetics over the years, over hundreds of thousands of years. That is why there's so many different races on Earth, in different parts of the globe. There's obviously people that look different skin color, different shaped eyes, bigger foreheads, those sorts of things. So I think we share a lot of genetics with a variety of different extraterrestrial races.
And why would they do this seeding work, do you think?
Well, it's acknowledged in circles, ufology circles, that genetics are kind of the currency of the universe. Like, it's not like they have, dollar bills that they use to trade with. I think technology is traded, but I think genetics are traded. And I think once a civilization reaches a certain peak, whether it's technologically or spiritually, they may feel an obligation to go out in the universe and generate more life forms that might be similar to them. And I think that's pretty much what's happened throughout the cosmos, not just on Earth.
Okay. Would you say part of that agenda might be to control?
I would say the malevolent ETs are associated with, genetic tinkering in a nefarious way, whereas the benevolent races would be more inclined to do it to generate more life forms of a higher consciousness, a higher awareness.
Thank you. Understanding that there's no such thing as junk DNA, and that is a false narrative created by the powers that are not. What does Earth's global leadership? Why does Earth's global leadership suppress humanity's ET DNA connection?
I mean, it's definitely associated with the idea of these malevolent ET races that have partnered up or allied up with some of these humans. I think there's hybrid programs that have been ongoing for thousands of years. So whether or not people reference like these Illuminati groups, I call them Illuminati, not Illuminati. So these Illuminati groups, these the ancient bloodlines of Europe, the Black nobility, they reference them as so the wealthy elite that obviously have come out very benefited from humanity over thousands of years. I think are potentially hybrid races. I mean, I think we're all hybrid race, but maybe these families have more genetic resemblance to like a reptilian race. Like I think we all potentially have reptilian DNA in us, but I think maybe more so for some of these families. And unfortunately, they practice a religion, Luciferian religion, where they, as babies, essentially, these families are born into. From what whistleblowers and insiders have suggested, they're manipulated from the womb essentially to kind of have a certain disposition, whether they have multiple personality disorder from being tortured or abused, or they just undergo as a child, they'll undergo several different what would be acknowledged as like MK Ultra type programming, monarch programming, where whether their mind is split or not to develop different personalities. I think sociopaths people can be groomed to be a sociopath. I think that's exactly what happens with some of these elite families. And whether or not they have ET bloodlines or not. So they're groomed to be a certain way, and to carry on the bloodline in a certain methodology that allows them to remain in power, because that's the name of the game, is to generate power, more power and wealth.
That's not going to happen anymore.
Not if we have anything to say about it.
It's not going to happen. Yeah, and what you just mentioned about the mind control and MK Ultra, all of that stuff is on the verge of being disclosed right now. All of this discomfort that's happening around the planet, it's the disclosure of all the corruption. And there's going to be a lot of disturbing information coming forward. So people need to get right with themselves to be able to handle what's going to come forward. Okay. So we are very close to disclosure on a global scale. I want to say it's going to happen this year, next year, that soon. In your opinion, what has shifted within the exopolitics community and with humanity generally for this to be the case?
Well, we're definitely seeing a lot of UFOs, UAPs getting more airtime, whether it's on social media or congressional hearings. We just had back in November of 2024, there was the UAP congressional hearings. We had some insiders, whistleblowers, like highly credible individuals, U.S. rear admirals and Pentagon officials, and, Department of Defense, people acknowledging that they have acquired, let's say, downed UFOs, or they'll reference the term UAPs to encompass both UFOs and USOs, USOs being unidentified submersible objects. So anything that goes in the water or in the air is now classified as the UAPs, the unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So I think the sharing of a lot of this content, whether it's UFOs, UAPs, and even the existence of extraterrestrials visiting us, or just flying around in space, is certainly getting the public conditioned to, people might reference this like predictive programming. It's definitely conditioned the public to believe that this is a possibility. And I think because we live in a free will universe, it is required to gain consent of the masses in order to carry out agenda, even if there's a benevolent message or effort underway. The public still has to agree to it. The masses still have to agree to it. And I think that, Hollywood obviously plays a part into this too.
Oh, sure.
Whether or not the movies that they showcase UFOs or aliens, sometimes there's the push. The military-industrial complex likes to push the notion that aliens are always a threat, which I don't believe is always the case. And even on that front, I think the fact that maybe there's certain disclosure efforts underway by a variety of different factions and groups, in order not to generate massive amounts of fear. We mentioned a galactic war. I think the people behind this effort to disclose don't want, the public to, let's say they find out ETs are real and there's negative ETs and they're here trying to corrupt us and control us and kill us. That potentially could shut down society, right?
Yes.
Like even if it's 10% of the population that doesn't want to get out of bed, contribute, or maybe they even want to harm themselves or others because of that knowledge, that would be devastating. So I think there's an effort to minimize that effect, to allow certain disclosures in a specific timeline so it doesn't impact humanity negatively.
I love it. I know you're a part of the big disclosure community, and in that community is very important to what's happening right now in this moment. And I just want to shout out another YouTube channel I saw a couple of weeks ago, Diary of a CEO. He had a guest, Luis Elizondo.
Yeah.
He's an ex-Pentagon official, and he mentioned that he quit his role in protest of the Pentagon not sharing what they know about disclosure in ET. So people, it's coming out. Do your research. Understanding that ETs have long been in contact with humans, albeit mostly covertly, beyond their prior established contact with global leadership and the military-industrial complex, who do you think the ETs will seek to openly connect with next, or will they just have a mass disclosure?
So I definitely believe there will be a global event no later than 2027. So it could happen tomorrow, it could happen, at the end of 2027. So I think that a lot of the intuitives or psychics I follow pretty much acknowledge that's going to be a thing. However, I think anyone can reach out. Dr. Stephen Greer is kind of famous for developing certain protocols, CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, where humanity by themselves can reach out to the benevolent ETs. And I should reference this. The term extraterrestrials, I mean, it does, whenever I reference it, it normally does include interdimensionals. I mean, it doesn't always have to, but in terms of like, if humanity wanted to reach out, and again, this is associated with the free will universe that we live in order for like the benevolent ETs don't want to upset us, so they're not going to reach out unless we ask for them to, to tell us that that we ask them to reach out to us. And I think that can be done through like meditation, deep meditation practices. From what I understand in the protocols, it's more effective if you do it in groups, because obviously the more minds that are actually generating that thought process, generating the idea of like the free will message of we want to be contacted, I think it's more likely that people will have those experiences. But I think many ET races are very advanced. And again, this includes interdimensional, so they don't necessarily have to contact us in the physical dimension. They can contact us in the astral plane when we're dreaming. And I think they do that a lot more often than people realize. But in terms of like a physical type of contact event, I mean, I believe there'll be a global event where we'll see stuff in the skies. In terms of like, being face to face with an extraterrestrial, that's going to take more years, I think, because not everyone, Bashar, the channeled entity Bashar through Daryl Anka has acknowledged, and I agree with this assessment, that in most cases, if humans are standing in front of an extraterrestrial, the vibration, the energy level, the aura that ET is giving off pretty much envelops the human, any of us, and we can't then differentiate who we are as an individual. We're so overcome and overwhelmed with that level of energy. So we have to then obviously raise our vibration up to match the extraterrestrials, so that then we can then kind of reside in the same space as them. And that's all associated with what we're going through now, this ascension event into, the fifth dimension. So
it's so exciting. What do you think will be the nature of some of the information that the benevolent ETs will share with humanity once we have the global disclosure?
I mean, I think it'll certainly, the exposure of extraterrestrials will change just the dynamic of like religion and even politics. Just everything on a global basis will be shifted. The benefit is usually there's like technology that's shared, that can revolutionize the planet overnight, pretty much. But I think the knowledge, I don't know if ETs would like share certain things that they know. I mean, I think they already do that. We reference like an Earth Alliance. People might reference the U.S. Space Force in this domain as well. But the secret space programs and how certain galactic federations are benefiting humanity through this alliance, sharing some of the technologies as well. But there's a learning curve. So I don't, in terms of sharing these technologies, some of the reasons that people say that we're not allowed to know what some of these classified technologies are is because they may fall into the wrong hands who would use it in nefarious, murderous ways. Technically, it's already fallen into the wrong people's hands.
Yes.
But I think ETs would just be here to answer our questions, whatever we thought were the pertinent questions to ask. I don't think they would. I think if they potentially like forced their own ideologies or
that doesn't resonate. Like, I don't feel like they would do that.
I don't. Yeah, I think that would be a trigger to to make people not want to even involve themselves with extraterrestrials, because obviously people are very entrenched in their own beliefs.
Yes.
And you start disrupting that belief system, and this is where the idea of cognitive dissonance comes into play. People don't want to evolve their own beliefs, right? They are comforted by their, if they grew up a certain religion or just believe in a certain way, they don't want that disrupted. So I think the benevolent ETs wouldn't necessarily come here to say like, this is how things are.
Right.
I think they would say, what questions do you have for us? And then they would answer those. So it's more of like a free will exchange in that sense, rather than them espousing what is true and what's not true.
That makes perfect sense to me. In your view, following global disclosure, how will planet Earth be transformed over the next 50 to 200 years?
And just to kind of have like a picture, I mean, I would, I watch a lot of sci-fi movies, so I'm trying to think of, I mean, we're already spacefaring. I think there's breakaway civilizations above our heads and even under our feet. So like the introduction of those, I think humanity is, we're undergoing a traumatic shift right now, right? There's major shifts, paradigm shifts of people's belief systems, incorporating, let's say, advanced technologies into this. There's the people might be fearful that there could, World War could break out or nuclear war. I don't believe that's even possible, but because I think we're being watched over and by the good guys to the point where only a certain amount of trauma is going to be allowed. So, but that doesn't mean we're out of the woods. I think we still have, humanity has to go through. Earth is considered like a mastery school, right? So the whole purpose of being here is to kind of go through some of these traumas, because that's how you evolve in a awareness, consciousness state.
Yes.
So we're not, it's not going to be. It's kind of funny that someone like President Trump has referenced the golden age.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, what you said, within the next 50 to 200 years, we're on the verge of golden age. And I think that it encompasses, advanced technologies, but it also references the idea that if we can use technologies in a way that frees us from, let's say, certain levels of slavery where we have to potentially work to survive, we have to pay to live on this planet, so to speak. I think a lot of that control is going to wither away to the point where we can now spend more time communing with each other, communing with nature.
Yes.
And the stress levels will drop. People will appreciate why they're actually existing in the first place. And even on a spiritual level, give a higher appreciation for even existing. So
love it. It's so exciting. I keep saying it, but it's true. If given the opportunity, which race of ETs would you want to meet first and why?
I mean, so I mean, technically I've had my experience, but I don't know.
That's one of my next questions.
So yeah, so I mean, I don't necessarily have a preference, in terms of which race. Yeah, I don't have a specific, the Pleiadians, the Arcturians.
Okay, fair.
Andromedans. I mean, I'm more wanting to meet maybe someone of my soul family that might be of a different race, ET race, right?
That's good.
So that would be the preference. Would be I want to meet someone who's connected to me on a soul level, but that could be also genetic. DNA is associated with genetic memory, right? So. So anyone that potentially shares that maybe off planet would be a race that or being that I'd want to meet.
I love that answer.
So, yeah.
Okay, so what questions would you ask them?
One of the things that is acknowledged by many insiders, and whether this is true or not, they always reference that the solar system has had kind of a barrier put up to, quote unquote, like protect us. I view that as going against free will, right? If like humanity, even if we were warlike, which technically we are, we're humanity is pretty aggressive. But whether that's our nature or not, I mean, that's what society is and trained us to be. But I think in terms of if we wanted to leave our solar system under our own, free will, using the technology we already have, we should be allowed to do that. And I think some of the insiders that purportedly have ties to some of these secret space programs say that there's like essentially a blockade or barrier that prevents us from leaving the solar system. Whether that's true or not, that's one of the questions that I would be like, well, if there's benevolent ETs play into the idea of free will, it's a free will universe. And if you infringe on someone's free will, you incur that negative energy back, right? That karmic energy back. So I'd be curious to know if there was a barrier placed around the solar system and why that would even be allowed.
I love that question. Have you personally experienced any UAP or ET encounters?
So I think it was probably when I was big into Dr. Stephen Greer, his disclosure, movement at the time, and he would go through some of the protocols on when he'd be out with some of his groups trying to contact ETs. And I don't necessarily I never thought you needed to have a large group to do this. I think people can reach a certain level of consciousness where they can make a connection with different ET races by themselves in like a deep meditative state. So from my experience, it's primarily associated with that, a deep meditative state where maybe I reach out, I project my mind to, let's say, up in the sky and let's say scan, people might reference this like a level of remote viewing, but scan the skies and ask for contact and hope that someone's listening. And in my experience, I think Dr. Greer had mentioned in some of their experiences the type of contact that ETs would make, not to scare people if they were to make contact, would be, if they were going to make physical contact, would be touching someone on the shoulder, or kind of having their hands go across the other person's hands. And so that's technically what happened to me in a meditative state when I was by myself. You know, nobody was with me, and so I had an ET essentially reach out to me in this fashion. I don't recall what the ET looked like, but I remember the experience being euphoric, and put me in a higher state of consciousness at the time. So
that's beautiful. Below is a list of 2024 UAP sightings and ET encounters as reported in the news. In terms of legitimacy, what are your thoughts about these incidents? You don't need to address them all. I know I shared the list with you earlier, but just for the audience, I'm going to run through it real quick. Is that okay? 11-foot humanoid on a Brazilian mountain, UAP sighted over LaGuardia Airport, Ibiza, Spain sighting, Lancaster and Palmdale, California. Many people noticed over 100 moving lights in the night sky. UAP over the U.S. Navy Air Show. Green UAP seen in Tehran. 4 bright orange UAPs seen by a couple hovering over a river in Fort Alexander, Winnipeg, Canada. UAP sightings in Nagpur, India. Ukrainian soldiers sighted UAP during Russian-Ukraine war. And a 10-foot alien seen outside Mall, Miami, Florida. That's probably the one people will think of.
Definitely got the most media coverage, I think.
Yeah. So you don't have to address all of them, but any thoughts on the legitimacy and the efficacy of these sightings?
So I would say the majority of sightings are going to be, because there's a controlled narrative, you know, by government forces, or, you know, different groups, different factions that might be associated with good groups, bad groups. The majority of craft in the sky, whether it's unidentified, is, I think, Earth technology, is like military industrial complex type technology. Because I think, you know, we have U.S. Space Force that's acknowledged. I think our airspace is monitored constantly. Whether or not different extraterrestrial groups could visit us without having to deal with, you know, let's say government craft following them and potentially trying to shoot them down through scalar technologies or whatnot. So I think the majority of craft in our sky is allowed to be there, right? There was, I mean, we just went through, like, New Jersey just went through like the drone sighting at the end of 2024.
Oh, yeah.
So, and again, I think this is associated with a controlled narrative to prepare the public for a lot of these things, in a variety of ways. I mean, I don't even know them all.
Right.
But in terms of, like, okay, there's going to be a limited hangout of truth to some of these things, but I think they're going to confuse us and, you know, manipulate the narrative to make it seem like these crafts, you know, UAPs in the sky are alien or, you know, non-human intelligence operated. So, but I think the majority of it, unless it's, the majority of it will be, you know, human operated, or, you know, or AI operated. But I think the different, how to differentiate between, let's say, an alien craft and a man-made craft. Most ETs are telepathic, so they can, you know, they can sense, or
Right.
empathic. They're empathic, so they can sense emotion. They can obviously speak to us through our minds. So if you're fearful of, like, some kind of UFO or ET encounter, the benevolent ETs will obviously take a step back. Like, they don't want to infringe your
Right.
free will, so they're going to
Okay.
not be
Okay.
forceful. So, and if they're advanced enough, a lot of their craft would potentially be interdimensional craft. So in that sense, or transdimensional, where in this dimension, maybe it's an orb of light, and then in the higher dimensions, it might be like 100-mile long spaceship. So I think the more advanced technologies would be potentially more likely to be alien or extraterrestrial. And I would say that would be more of like orbs of light, whereas anything that might look metallic or, comprised of some kind of metal composite would be more man-made. And we purportedly have a lot of advanced technologies. I mean, we've been
Oh, sure.
the down craft since, let's just go with Roswell, right? 1947. Since Roswell, there's been crash retrieval teams that have probably acquired tens of thousands of crafts,
Right.
technologies, whether they're reverse engineered or not. So we definitely, different human factions definitely have technologies that would probably blow people's minds.
Yeah. All to be disclosed in due time. um, Please explain for our viewers the purpose of Project Bluebeam.
So I think Project Bluebeam, whether that was created out of the CIA thought project, whether it was like a NASA origin, I mean, definitely, rogue groups within, let's say, the military industrial complex that want to utilize a scenario, which I think they've already utilized, using the technology that they've acquired to generate holographic images. This is essentially associated with Project Bluebeam. And they use it not just to maybe represent UFOs or UAPs in the sky, but I think initially they were even looking at making, using it in the Middle East on unawares religious, acolytes there, whether they're Muslims or not, but to generate a certain response where they might see that people might see more as like a religious event. And so and utilizing additional technologies like voice of God technologies, where people might even hear things in their mind that is indicative of like someone they worship, a god or whatnot. So seeing something and then hearing something in your head, I think that's associated with potentially causing a group of people to act out a certain way, whether it's violently or not. I think that technology has been around for at least the 80s and 90s. There's a number of, I think, insiders, whistleblowers who have come out and said this technology, whether people are microchipped or utilizing nanotechnology, or if it's just very low frequencies, extreme low frequencies that are used to manipulate the mind, the frequencies of the mind. This would obviously be associated with mass mind control type of projects. So I think Project Bluebeam is associated with this to generate a fake narrative. And obviously, if one could be associated with the second coming of Christ or something akin to that, another narrative could be, an extraterrestrial invasion of Earth. I think we've seen UFOs in the sky that has been used where Project Bluebeam technologies have been used, so holographic images. So
Cool. Not cool, but thank you. So, how can humanity best prepare themselves now for disclosure/contact?
So yeah, so I would say it's all associated with the individual raising their own vibration,
Right.
which then obviously collectively raises the Earth's vibration. So, certain practices, a lot of good people will reference the idea of showing gratitude and appreciation, how that's it's a positive energy type reaction that helps raise our vibration. I would say good diet, exercise, prayer, meditation, and yeah, just living your true, authentic life. We all have ego, so I think ego gets the better of us a lot of times. But if we can kind of release that reaction that ego might want to control our reaction to things. Because I think in terms of ascending to, let's say, states of higher consciousness, going to 5D, I think there's still ego in 5D, but I think it's less likely to manipulate and control your true authentic self. Not everyone's meant to be loving beings right now, right? We all go through different journeys. Our lives are different and unique. but I think it's important that people don't try to appease others. I think we need to practice an ideology where you're just being your true authentic self, where you essentially are, you're transparent, right? People know who you are.
Yeah.
And hopefully that encompasses the elements of compassion, love, unconditional love, the positive attributes, being a good person, humanitarian, so to speak, giving of yourself, like the differentiation between service to self and service to others. If you can give more of service to others rather than service to self, then obviously you're practicing your ideology is probably more associated with benefiting all of humanity. But I think in order to get there, you have to be true to yourself.
Absolutely. Right. That's the only way to get there. Before we move on to the next segment of the interview, do you have any closing remarks on disclosure?
I mean, I definitely, since I've started down my own road of disclosure and the rabbit holes that I mentioned, initially I thought humanity was going to see a dystopian future. I thought I thought it was like necessary to prepare. And this is maybe within my first 3 years of researching. I thought it was necessary to prep, right? To buy things that would allow you to survive. We're going to, undergo some kind of cataclysm or something. Once I reached kind of my understanding as a starseed and my mission, I recognized that we were not going to see that reality. And sure enough, I think over the last, let's say 10 years or more, the disclosure efforts I've seen and the growth of humanity, the evolution of humanity has definitely benefited us as a whole. I mean, there's obviously times that we kind of, take one step back of two steps forward kind of thing. But I mean, we're meant to go through this trauma we're going through now, but I'm more excited now than I've ever been for disclosure. I think it's obvious to those of us that have been in this kind of environment for so long, so many years, that things are definitely improving. More people are obviously interested in these topics, and that's only going to aid disclosure in the future.
I love it. So what does spirituality mean to you? No right or wrong answers, of course.
Yeah, so it's your own unique search to why you exist, why, not just on a physical level, right, where this is just a vessel. So your soul, your spirit, what is your purpose in this life or many other lives? I'm a believer in reincarnation, so I think it's important that people seek those answers out, and rather than, it's not to suggest religion is all bad, but I think, religion is a control mechanism. So spirituality is your search, your unique search for truth, for your truth. And so for me, that's what I've been, I go through my day trying to seek out answers like that. What is going to better me as a human being, but also my soul. What is going to better my soul? What is my higher self trying to tell me? And how do you even connect to your higher self? So that's definitely associated with spirituality.
I love that. So we're about to close out this segment, and we have one more segment coming up. And in closing, I want to say one of my favorite catchphrases is, "What we don't know that we don't know, that's so dangerous." We need to keep our open mindset and be willing to consider other perspectives to achieve internal wisdom and knowledge about what's going on in the external world. That's just me.
100%.
And to close this with a quote from Gerald Massey, who's an Egyptologist. They must find it difficult, those who have taken authority as the truth rather than truth as authority. I think that's a good note to end this part of the interview on.
Sure.
So now we're going to the Turn the Tables segment. I'm inviting Catherina back on, and David, you have the opportunity to ask either or both of us a question.
Okay. Well, so since I referenced, my thoughts on disclosure and, specifically ET disclosure. What do you both, Sheila, you kind of referenced you think it's going to happen soon. But in terms of, let's say, how do you think disclosure will happen? Like what events do you think will lead up to, let's say, a mass disclosure event? And what might that be?
That's why I had you here. No. What do I think? I think it's going to be a combination of things. I think it's going to be people have their individual energetic experiences, like you said, through meditation or channeling. And as an empath, I know I've had some interesting experiences. So definitely, it's happening now. It's that the ETs have been contacting folks on an individual basis as they deem people to be ready for eons, I would say. Um, More on a global scale, I think more sightings in the sky. I really think that's, for me, the start of it, you know, because it's at a distance. Consider how people react now when they see that they get a little upset, right? But it's
Right. Hyperventilate. Yeah.
but it's exposure. It's like spoon feeding the populace in a slow way to get them ready for what's coming, and it's coming sooner than they realize, in my opinion. I'm going to say by 2026. That's me.
Okay.
Catherina.
So, full disclosure, this gave me a lot to chew on because I've not really even thought about this aspect of life
Mm,
as it is. I'm just recently embracing more
mhm,
spirituality and as it pertains to the masculine and divine, divine feminine, divine masculine, astrology, just really more than horoscopes, right? Just like really the impact of the energies of the planets and all of that. So I'm going to have to watch your interview again to really like digest because this is a lot of new. I mean, other than what's on popular television, a lot of this is new and like things I've not even heard of. So I'm
mm,
fascinated by everything that you guys discussed today. But specifically to your question, right? They discovered more structures under the pyramid, and I don't know if that's in any way, shape, or form some sort of indication of what's more to come. But just the age that we're in now really is. I'm excited to see like what has. I'm excited to see how everything unfolds.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. You referenced the pyramid, the structures under the Giza pyramid. My understanding is that they reference like halls of records, halls of Amenti. There's been several researchers that have actually referenced they think there was always structures down there, and I think there's bases under the pyramids as well. But from my perspective, that was clearly associated with a disclosure event, get the public more ready, because I don't think this is new, right? The technology, the tomography and ground penetrating radar is not a new technology, right? So those that had the technology available would have already have done that years ago. So this is obviously a revelation done on purpose now.
Mhm. Exactly. Oh my gosh, this has been such a dynamic. I love this conversation. Um, Thank you, David. Please share with folks where they can reach you.
Yeah, so I actually just looked to see because I've had two YouTube channels deleted off
Uh,
of YouTube. So I guess I have to create a new one. But predominantly I'm on Instagram and obviously Facebook, just because they're both connected.
mhm.
So Road to Disclosure is my channel.
That's
Road,
road the number two disclosure.
correct. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much. I've always had thoughts to like generate a website, and
Mhm.
I am probably this when I create my YouTube channel. In addition to like Rumble, I'll have a channel on Rumble. The effort this summer is going to be to interview people. I'm in New Jersey. potentially down the Jersey Shore and interview people just to get their own insights into what they think is going on with UFOs and that and ET disclosure. So there's going to be an effort this summer to at least go out and do that. So that'll be hopefully the project that I'll start in the next few weeks. Yeah.
That's exciting. Catherina, please shout out your work.
Oh, yes. So Project 5356, I do grants and operations consulting for service-based small businesses and nonprofits. I also have a coaching service called Ask Cat. I just realized this weekend, this is new. I'm telling everybody, I'm going to look at it from a big sister lens, right? So it's your business big sister, where I work with people who are, have blocks, whether it's knowledge, confidence, writing, whatever it is. I work with you to get over that block, through it and onto your next level. So those are the services I offer.
I love it. And I want to mention that David will be coming back in May. So we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. So I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
Stay on the line so we can have our proper goodbyes, even though we're in the reel.
Got it.
Goodbye, folks.
Thank you.